Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
President Tom, fellow Rotarians, and guests, I want to welcome you. It's always my joy to talk about my experiences. In Germany, I have done it now for 42 years, and each time I do it, it's all very fresh. It seems like I'm right back there in those caves. And you know, I've had a lot of darkness in my life, but it's interesting. We all begin our lives in the dark. We're conceived and carried in a womb for 9 months. So darkness is a very important part of our lives, not only at birth, but also in our lives as we live our lives. And you know, it's a very important part of growth to actually embrace the darkness of our lives, and that's very hard to do. Now, there's a very great verse in the Bible, great book. Isaiah chapter 45, verse 3 says, "Those who believe in God says, I will give you the treasures of darkness, the hidden things of secret places." Isn't that beautiful? So, yes, I've had a lot of darkness in my life, but I have made it a wonderful stepping stone so that I can help a lot of people today. My parents were German immigrants. They came here at the age of 18, and they married, and 7 years later, I came along, and somehow they just had marital problems, learning the language, adjusting to the United States. And so my mother decided, well, maybe if we didn't have this lively toddler, age 2, named Eleanor, maybe the marriage would be better and it would be easier to adjust in the United States. So my mother was a wonderful woman, and I have forgiven them, both of them. And yet she wasn't really motherly. You know, some people can punch out babies like cookies and just walk away. So my mother decided, well, if we didn't have this Eleanor, maybe we could have a better life in the United States. So she shipped me off to Germany at the age of 2, and she came back here, and they were still married, but they really divorced maybe 4 or 5 years later anyway. Now, I have forgiven my parents, ladies and gentlemen, because you see, God planned my life that way, that I would have those kind of parents and have Hitler in my life and go through everything I did to make me the woman I am today, whatever that means, you know. But I'm able to comfort and help a lot of people, so I attribute it to having gone through everything I've gone through. And you know, the same with you. Whatever hard times you go through, I know there's a purpose also. So I have forgiven them, and I have made the very best of whatever I've been through. Now, when I was growing up in Germany, in a city near Dresden, Plauen, going to school was a military experience, ladies and gentlemen. At the age of 6, when a teacher entered the classroom, we had to stand at attention, click our heels, and say, "Heil Hitler." Heaven help you if you didn't do it right. So if you got up and you just said, "Heil Hitler," you had to line up in front of the room, and you were hit across your fingertips with a very thin rod. So every child would stand at attention, and like a military soldier would say, "Heil Hitler." Now, what exactly does Heil Hitler mean? Well, we were just pledging allegiance to the flag. That's what it means, that you pledge allegiance to Adolf Hitler. Now, why do you put your hand on your left side? I don't know. It's just in honor, or you love your country. Well, that's what happened in Germany. Heil Hitler was honoring Adolf Hitler. And so living through all that was a very frightening experience, because you never knew when you were going to mess up and you were going to get hit. So there used to be youth movements. At the age of 10, it was mandatory for a child to join the Hitler Youth Movement. And the Hitler Youth Movement was a wonderful organization, training young people to be strong, mean, nasty, Nazi officers as they grew up. So, guess what? He used to hold these youth meetings every Sunday morning in churchyards. And the music would be playing, and the marching would happening, and the doors to the churches would be open. But not too many people went in there. Because if you went to church, you were marked as a traitor to Adolf Hitler. How dare you worship somebody else besides Adolf Hitler? So nobody really went in there, but the church doors were open to give you the freedom, to make believe that, well, nothing really has changed in Germany since Adolf Hitler took over, except things are better. He used to boom his voice on the radio. We are making progress, ladies and gentlemen, and I love you, German people. We are making progress. And in school, we would have a map of the progress of the German army. And so, we were just mesmerized with him, even though underneath it all, there was a fear in German people, but they didn't talk about it. And so this continued throughout the 30s. He became chancellor in 1933, and the war began in 1939. So all through that time, we were under a dictator. And people in this country, ladies and gentlemen, just don't understand what it's like to live under a dictator. People have said to me, well, why didn't you German people march against Hitler? Well, you can do that, but you'll be dead by the end of the day. So you don't get a dictator out of your country unless somebody from without takes him out of your country. So no dictator can be replaced within the country. It has to come from without. So he was killing people all along, and by the way, Hitler killed 50 million people, but we only hear about 6 million Jewish people. I am not Jewish, We only hear of 6 million Jewish people. Folks, I'm here to tell you, Hitler killed 50 million people, and he got away with it, so it seems. Well, he had something called Lebensborn, and I would like you to come up later and look at all these pictures, especially the one at the end there. Lebensborn, ladies and gentlemen, was an organization that would ask for volunteers of teenage girls, blonde and blue eyes. And if you were blonde and blue eyes and you didn't volunteer, you were kidnapped. And these girls became baby factories. And there were 10 of them in Germany, and there were probably 12 in Holland and Belgium and all over. And these places were strategically placed next to officers' quarters. And these girls would bear babies every single year. And a girl was never to hold or see the baby unless the officer who fathered the baby allowed it. And so there were thousands of babies born. And this was Hitler's way of replacing the people he killed, So please come up later and look at the Lebensborn baby factory, I call them. And so Germany, everything was hushed up in Germany. Hitler said, oh, I love you German people. And by the way, Hitler was not German. He was Austrian. And so some of you are going to ask me when I have a question and answer period later, well, Eleanor, you mean to tell me you German people didn't know about concentration camps? Well, let me answer that question right now, or save you a trip from coming up here to talk to me. No, we didn't know about concentration camps. It was such a hushed up thing. And even if you suspected, you would say, well, they're work camps. People are going to these places to learn a trade. And so nobody dared question what was really going on there. And wait till you hear this. Concentration camps did not start out to be death camps. They were just a place where all the undesirables of the Third Reich would be placed. That would be Catholic priests, Bible teachers, Protestant ministers, communists, gypsies, anyone that Hitler thought was not part of the Aryan race. Now, I have another lecture, which is a sequel to this one, called The Education System Under the Nazis. Obviously, I can't include it. Where did he get this Aryan race thing? Very interesting. Well, I can't tell you now, but anyway. So death camps only began later on. Guess where Adolf Hitler got the idea of concentration camps? It is not original with Adolf Hitler. He studied American history, ladies and gentlemen, and when he got to the part about American Indian reservations, he decided, hey, what a great idea. That's where I can put my undesirables who disagree with the Third Reich policies. So that's what he did. Pretty sad, isn't it? Yeah. So, where was America, ladies and gentlemen, before 1941? When Hitler was doing all his atrocities, where was America? I mean, we're always fixing naughty countries who don't live up to our standards. So where was America at this time? Well, folks, I Googled that question, and it was a mistake. Because when that screen came up with the answer, I was shocked, and I'm here to share it with you. Do you know that there were 6 major corporations who helped Hitler? What were they? IBM, Standard Oil, General Motors, Ford Motor Company, Kodak, and Coca-Cola. They all helped Hitler. I guess for financial reasons. I hope it wasn't anti-Semitism. Hope it was a financial reason. Well, Henry Ford was Hitler's idol for years. Adolf Hitler would have Ford's picture on his desk for years. He absolutely admired him. And so I Googled it a little further, and I found out that Lindbergh, Rockefeller, Carnegie, and Roosevelt, and Joe Kennedy, they supported Adolf Hitler. Now, was it globalization? You know, liberal people in this country think, oh, globalization is the best way to go. Is it? Well, I don't know about that. Do you know that initially Hitler did not want to kill Jewish people? He wanted to ship them off to other countries. And so 960 Jewish people arrived in New York Harbor, and Roosevelt sent them back to die. And when they came back to Hamburg, Hitler said, well, I guess nobody wants these people, so I can do with them whatever I want. So what about Jewish people? Well, no one really talked about their disappearance. As you know, Jewish people had to wear an armband with the Star of David, the gold star. But you see, Nazis had an armband too, and that was an ugly spider. So one day, I asked someone after school, I said, you know, why is it that the people with the pretty star on their arm always look so sad? And the people with the ugly spider are always mean and angry. Why is that? And this person said to me, well, Eleanor, I think it's because Hitler doesn't like the people with the pretty star. I said, but why? And this person said to me, shh, I don't know why. And so there were these 2 men, and they were chopping ice across the alley where I was walking with this lady. And somehow we made contact, and they wore the pretty star on their armband, and they were chopping ice off the sidewalk. And I looked at them and the pretty star, and I thought, you know, when I grow up, I'm going to show that Hitler, because I'm going to marry one of these people with the pretty star. So when I got married to Robert Isaacson many years ago, he passed away, unfortunately, too early, and I was walking down the aisle, and I said to myself, Adolf, piffle, puffle to you, because I'm marrying Bob Isaacson. And so, you know, Hitler actually did good things in Germany. Do you know that he built all the autobahns? When you go to Germany today, you can go 120 miles an hour on the autobahn without any tickets, and there's no speed limit. So Hitler initially really did good things. He built up German morale after the First World War, and he told German people that, hey, you're special, and so he did good things until he touched Jewish people. And you know, when I study history, I find that what is the one thing that will make an empire crumble very quickly? There was Babylon, and there was the Roman Empire, and then the Third Reich. What is it that makes these empires fall so quickly? You know what it is? It's anti-Semitism. Yeah. But nobody talks about that. In fact, there's a verse in the Bible, in Genesis chapter 12, that says, he that blesses Israel will be blessed, and he that curses Israel will be cursed. That's a heavy verse, and it's in black and white in the Bible. So, what does that mean for America? Well, if we ever turn our back on Israel, I think the same thing will happen. So we want to make sure that we don't do that. So the good news about Hitler, though, is today Hitler is dead, ladies and gentlemen, and you and I are here. And isn't that wonderful? So empires fall and rise again. And here we are in America. Now, some other people may say, well, Eleanor, why didn't you people have a revolution? There was a revolution in France and in Russia, and how come you German people didn't get together and kill Adolf Hitler? Well, do you know that there were 28 attempts on Hitler's life, and they all failed? And he said, I guess there's somebody who doesn't want me to die, who must like what I'm doing. And so they all failed. However, when you watch documentaries, you may see Adolf shaking his left hand behind him. So people said he may have had Parkinson's, or maybe he was injured by one of the attempts of his life. We don't know that. But anyway, so why wasn't there a revolution in Germany? Here you can march. Here a comedian can make fun of the president and get paid for it. That can't happen under a dictator, ladies and gentlemen. It can't happen. So why didn't German people revolt? Okay, first of all, Hitler was in total control of everybody's life. And guess what? He was loved. German people had no idea all the bad things he was doing. They loved him. He would build them up and get on the radio and, oh, you German people are special. And whenever he invaded another country, he would say, I'm not invading any country. I'm making room for you German people. You're very industrious, and you need more Lebensraum. You need more space to live and produce. So German people swallowed all this. And so he was loved, really. We found out all the atrocities Hitler did after the war. I learned it in school. And so, why wasn't there a revolution? I'll tell you why. Before Hitler completed all his atrocities, guess what he did? He enforced a law called gun control. And the message was exactly what we hear today in America. Oh, gun control. We've got to get these guns out of these criminals. Well, it so happens that criminals always have a gun. So he disarmed the civilians. And they loved it. Oh, isn't this wonderful? We have such a great Führer. Look at that. He's protecting us, right? Folks, it was a lie. Because before a dictator can take you over, he has to disarm you. And that's exactly what happened. And guess what? He would stage shootouts. And then he'd say, look, we've got to get these guns away from these terrible people. But the government staged it to push the law through, to make people accept it. Isn't that something? Yeah. Well, it worked because he did have gun control. So everything continued in Germany until September 9th, 1944, in my city, Plauen, which is near Dresden. September 9th, 1944, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I was in the backyard, and someone said to me, now, Eleanor, listen, when you hear a shushing in the sky, be prepared. There will be a big explosion right after that. That means the bombs are falling. Sure enough, September 9th, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, was the shushing, and the bombs fell. But they fell in another part of the city, not where I was staying with my aunt. Well, we all ran into the basement in absolute panic. And when I got to the bottom of that basement, all those steps, I was 9 years old. Now, I know you're going to come up here and say, oh, Eleanor, 9-year-old, you mean to tell me you had such deep thoughts? Let me save you another trip coming up here. Yeah. When children go through a war, ladies and gentlemen, there is no such thing as childhood. Believe me, I'm younger now. Now I'm a competitive ballroom dancer, and I'm driving a red BMW, and when I put that top down, and you see me out in that parking lot, just get out of my way. Because I'm 18 years old again. I didn't have a childhood back then, but I have it now. So I get to the bottom of these steps, and my next thought was, now wait a minute, why did the bombs fall over there and not over here where I am? Is there somebody watching me? Maybe there's somebody watching me. Now, I had never been to church. I never saw a Bible. I never heard of Jesus Christ, the Messiah. Never heard of him. Where did I get the idea? But something inside said, there must be a reason why I didn't get killed today. Well, that thought, ladies and gentlemen, got me through the war. That, hey, there's somebody watching me who wants me to grow up and be a woman. And I'm just going to trust that invisible friend because there's a reason for me not to die when all these other people were dying around me. And so I aged about 50 years at the bottom of those steps at that very moment. Again, I'm younger now. Well, Christmas Eve came, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll never forget Christmas Eve, 1944. We had no more electricity. We had no more school. I mean, buildings were bombed all over. People lost their homes, and they would sleep maybe in a room like this. We would all get together and sleep. And we'd say, all right, now this section here, you go out and you listen for the rumbling in the sky, and you over here, quick, sleep. And then maybe an hour later we'll switch. So living every day was an absolute wonderful gift because, hey, I made it again another day. Well, Christmas Eve, 2 o'clock in the morning, the rumbling started in the sky. My aunt and I ran down this steep hill. I have pictures of it all. And we were lucky enough to live near a cave. And a cave had two entrances, and it was called the Mauerkeller or the Hammerkeller. And these caves were actually a huge mountain in the center of the city that was used by breweries to store their beer. It has no historic value except breweries dug it out to store their beer because it was cold and wet, and it was just great for them to do that. Well, Christmas Eve came, and when we got to the entrance of the Mauerkeller, ladies and gentlemen, where we had always gone now since September, and this was Christmas, I said to my aunt, we can't go in there tonight. Let's go to the one further away. And she said, are you ready to die? I said, we're not going to die. Quick, let's run. So it was another 7.5-minute walk or a 20-minute walk or a panic run in 7 minutes. So we got to the entrance of the Hammerkeller. He closed the door, and the bombs started falling outside. But these caves were very, very safe because back then they didn't have nuclear weapons, thank goodness. And so the ground started moving, and fast forward here, he opened the door, and as we climbed over all the debris and bodies and what have you, we get to the entrance of the Mauerkeller. And guess what? It was bombed sideways, and 300 people, a little more or less, died in there. And when you look at my pictures of the caves, you'll see a little hole. That was the escape of the cave. And there was a rope ladder going up, and not too many people got up there and escaped. But folks, my aunt said, well, you know, I guess God didn't want us to die tonight. Here was this God thing again. And my question was, you know, who are you? Where are you? How can I find you? How did you tell me that I shouldn't go to the Mauerkeller, but I should go to the other one? I didn't hear any voice. There were no papers falling from the sky to say, Eleanor, don't go to the Mauerkeller, go to the other one. What was it? So again, my conclusion was, well, whoever is watching over me, he's doing a great job. And maybe he wants me to grow up and be a woman. And when I grow up and be a woman, I'm going to do everything I can to make this world a better place. I'm still working on that. So the bombs continued. I'm rushing along here. The last attack was April 10th. So for 7 months, April 10th, 1945. So for 7 months, ladies and gentlemen, we became like animals. You just live to live. I mean, we get up in the morning, you know, what are we going to wear? What are we going to eat? That's all out. When you go through a war, you're alive. Hey, I'm alive another day. Another bomb attack passed, and I made it, and it's just wonderful. And do you know, I learned to appreciate every single day of my life since Germany. And to this day, when I get up and I read the paper, and I don't see my name in the obituary section, I'm having a good day. I don't know about you, but it's a great day every day, especially when you live in America. So the war ended, and we had no home. There were no more stores. I slept in a bed with 7 other children sideways. And then the invasions took place. The Americans came into our town in May, and folks, for the first time, we were without a dictator, and it was wonderful. And the chocolate bars were flying, and the chewing gum was flying all over the place. Everybody tried to learn English. And so, as you know, in October of 1945, it was Truman, Churchill, and Stalin who decided that part of Germany should go to the Russians. So that's where I was, in the Russian zone. So we were again under a dictator, ladies and gentlemen. And guess what? Every dictator is exactly the same. Be that Stalin, Hitler, Mussolini, they're all the same. They want total control of you. And so the Russians took over. We had to learn Russian in school. Every single day we had 3 hours of the Russian language. And we had also great starvation. So every day there would be a cup, may I? There would be a truck coming filled with water, and you would get 1 cup of water a day. There would be another truck coming, 1 cup of soup a day. That was it. So starvation was already upon us during the bombings, but we were so busy running for our lives. Who takes time out to eat? You don't. And so, anyway, if you lost your home and you were lucky enough to have a hut, garden, you could go live in that hut. In Germany, you don't have your garden behind your house like you have here. You have a garden section of the city, and you buy the plot, and there's usually a little hut and a little water faucet, and so that's where people ended up living. So there was this family with a lot of children, and somehow they were never hungry. I think all these kids would go climbing into other gardens to steal food. Well, they were lucky enough to have relatives in America, and every single Friday they would get packages from America. And the kids would open the package, and there would be chocolate and chewing gum, and oh my goodness. Well, one day, this huge package came and they couldn't wait to open it. And they opened it, and there was this one package that they didn't know what it was. And so the mother opened it and said, I think it's ground up nuts, it's crunchy. She said, I think I'll take a big pot of water, take one potato from the garden, grate the potatoes, salt and pepper. That would be supper. She said, I'm going to add these ground up nuts, we'll have some protein. What do you think? So the kid said, oh, Mom, that's wonderful. And so she did this, and she dished out the soup, and they said, oh, Mom, this is really good. Well, 2 weeks later, a letter came from America to say, now listen, we've got this huge package coming to you, and everything in there is for you to eat except this one package. Don't eat that. Those are grandmother's ashes. And we want you to bury them next to grandfather in the cemetery. Well, they didn't laugh, and meanwhile, she was floating in the ocean. Well, fast forward here again. I had 1 egg a year, folks. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, 1 egg a year. Delicious. Well, my aunt remarried. We then lived on the Czechoslovakian border, and I crossed the borderline alone at the age of 11 to get food. Now, you know that Germany, actually the Russians, put up a wall to keep German people in. So if you escaped in any way, you were shot instantly. Well, we lived on this Czechoslovakian border, and so my uncle said, now, Eleanor, listen, why don't you cross the border and I'll help you. So when I throw up a match, that means there were no Russian soldiers there. So why don't you run over there? So 3 o'clock in the morning, I would have money under my hair, and I would be welcomed by a family there. I don't have time to go into all this, but anyway, they welcomed me, and then the next day, 3 o'clock again in the morning, my uncle would throw up a match to say, come on over. So I would be dashing over the border alone at the age of 11, 3 o'clock in the morning. You say, Eleanor, how could you do that? I'll tell you how. I had developed such a friendship with my invisible Mr. Wonderful, who doesn't let me die. Certainly, I would say, now, whoever you are, if you can keep the heavy bombs from falling on me, you can certainly keep the Russian bullets away from me. And I had no fear. And it was just amazing that I developed this wonderful relationship with Mr. Invisible, but it wasn't church, and it wasn't religion. It was just a relationship. Isn't that great? That's what got me through. So, my mother made contact with us, and I'm almost through, and she let me come to America. So May 26, 1948, I arrived in the United States alone at the age of 13, and the reason I had to come alone is because I was an American citizen, and my mother was smart enough to leave my birth certificate with my aunt, so that the Russians had to let me out of Germany. But none of my relatives could come with me because they were German people. And even though the wall was not yet up in Berlin, we had barricades all throughout Germany. So nobody could go anywhere. But the Russians had to let me through because I was an American citizen, so I had to come alone. No problem. I said, now, let's talk, whoever you are. Now, this is going to be a piece of cake for you to take care of me in America. I mean, if you took care of me in Germany with no food, and I wasn't abducted, and I wasn't kidnapped by anybody, and the bombs didn't fall on me, certainly you're going to help me in America learn the language and get used to my mother, whom I didn't know. And so I developed this faith-based friendship, and it's so great, you know? And I'm still enjoying that today. Not religion and not church, but a relationship. Terrific. So the ship arrived in New York, and my parents were there, and my father was already remarried, and my mother was going to remarry 5 months after I arrived, but they weren't speaking to each other. And I thought, oh no, I just finished a war. So, you know, so, okay. So I decided, all right, I'm ready for anything. So I lived with my mother. She remarried 5 months later. I adjusted very quickly. I learned the language by creating my own dictionary. Every word I heard, I would write it down phonetically. Then I'd say, now what does this mean? And so I learned the language in 6 months, and just to show you how hard I worked, when I graduated 1 year later from high school, I was in the National Honor Society. So I not only had to learn the language, but I had to learn all the materials. So I pulled out all the stops to adjust in America, and it was just wonderful. Well, after I had everything in America, life still had an emptiness about it. Now, why am I here, and why was I not killed in Germany, and all this? So my faith, again, was questioning, why am I here? Why are you here? And so I became a spiritual person, and I tried every religion out there, folks. And all the rules of this religion and the rules of that religion somehow just didn't work for me. So one day somebody said to me, do you know that God has a purpose for all of us, and he really loves us? And she opened up the Bible, and she said, well, Jesus Christ, the Messiah, came for all of us, to give us life more abundant. I said, really? She said, and she opened up the Bible to John 3:16, which says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. I said, what a great verse. She says, yeah, this has been in the Bible over 2,000 years, this verse, but it doesn't really do you any good unless you put your name in there and make it personal. Would you like to do that? I said, I grabbed her and I said, would I like to do that? Of course. I've been searching for years since the first bomb fell. So for God so loved Eleanor that he gave his only begotten Son, that if Eleanor believed in him, should not perish, have everlasting life. Guess what? I did that February 25th, 1954, 8:45 in the morning, and it was a Thursday. And that was 63 years ago. I'm here to tell you, I really enjoy being a Christian. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have my Bible and the fact that God loves me and that he did send Jesus, the Messiah. Actually, he's a rejected Messiah. A lot of people don't know that there was one Messiah, but two comings. First time he came was to pull in the Gentiles, The second time he comes back, he's going to be a political Messiah, what Jewish people are waiting for. And so that changed my life, folks. That was my turning point. So February 25th is a birthday I still remember. And so another verse, John 14:6, he said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. I not only found my relationship, a close relationship with my invisible friend, but I also found myself and purpose for my life. Why am I here? And so in closing, ladies and gentlemen, I've got 1 minute. I just want to use an analogy. I have been a member of the Lancaster Symphony ever since I live in Pennsylvania, which is 15 years. And I always take my young people there, and I have a box, and I make it a big evening for my young people. And they love it, get all dressed up for them. And so I always get there early. And ladies and gentlemen, when I get there early, and I hear the orchestra tuning up, nothing makes any sense. I mean, the piccolo is pickling, and the drums are drumming, and the harp is harping. Nothing makes any sense. It's chaos. That's how my life was. But, I'm going to use this. Stephen Gunzenhauser is a member of this club, and he's sitting right over there, and he's the conductor of this beautiful symphony. And if you are not subscribing, you really should. It's great, because whatever he does, listen, only in Lancaster do we hear music under the baton of Stephen Gunzenhauer, and he didn't tell me to say this, but I'm saying it. Anyway, I'm using this example because everything is chaos until Stephen steps on that podium and he raises the baton, and suddenly you have a beautiful symphony. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's what happened to me. My whole life was such a mess, emotionally and physically. But when I gave the baton to Jesus Christ, everything became a beautiful symphony, and that was 63 years ago. And the music is still playing today. Thank you so much for having me. Are there any,